Once again, this episode is being brought to you by dieselfuelprints.com. Diesel Fuel Prints has been in the sticker business since 1991, and they've been printing all of my stickers since the early 2000s. Dieselfuelprints.com has easy online ordering and quotes for stickers of any size and shape. Full color printing on the highest quality weatherproof material, and 125 black and white stickers starts at $25. Shipping's always free, and listeners of this show can get 10% off when they use the promo code AWP2021. So go check out Diesel Fuel Prints for your sticker needs. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is Connie Collingsworth. Connie is an art director, and she has her own record label, her own production company, her own merchandise company, and all sorts of stuff. She's in the country music genre. If you listen to this show a lot, you have heard her name many times. She is the most shouted out person on this show who's never actually been a guest. She got a hold of me and told me she was ready to come on after a weird COVID year. I finally got Connie on the show, which is super awesome. She's one of my favorite people, and we work a lot together, and super cool to have her on. So, as always, all the stuff you need to know about the show is below: merch, Patreon, all that stuff. Give us a like and a share and review wherever it is you're watching or listening to this show. And yeah, let's get to Connie Collingsworth. We talked for a long time, so this is a good long episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is the most talked about person on this show ever who's never been on. Today I have on Connie Collingsworth of Riding High Productions. She is an art director. A lot of my listeners will be very familiar with Connie from our circle of graphic design friends. But hey, Connie, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I'm very, very happy to finally have you on this show. You get shout outs on this show, like at least 50% of the episodes have some, well, I was talking to Connie and,
That sounds like I do a lot of talking.
Yeah. Well, we do. You're, one of those people I talk to online nearly every single day.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of people that, it's one of those weird things. We were talking right before we got started about how, as full-time designers and art directors, we've been kind of isolating for like a decade,
Yeah.
And so almost all of my human interaction at this point is online, so it's like I have the people I talk to on Facebook like every day who are like, I might not see them hardly ever.
Yeah.
But they're still, it's like, I guess I'm one of my best friends, and I've seen him like once in a decade.
Oh, it's been over a decade for us. I mean, it's been a while. So,
yeah, it has. It's been a long time.
But we do talk daily. So
we do. And we actually had like a little quick, video kind of chat about a year ago when I was starting the podcast, and you were helping me try to kind of sort some stuff out. But it was nice to see you then, and it is nice to see you now.
Nice to see you.
So yeah, me and Connie work together a lot on a lot of projects. She brings me on to do a bunch of merch design stuff for her artists on her management company and on her record label. She also owns La Honda Records. You own that with
I co-own it. Yeah, I co-own it with a friend of mine, Travis Blankenship. He's known as the Rural Sultan on socials. He manages Coulter. Okay. and Vincent. So you're, aware of that. He's got a management company, and then we partnered up on, two people that have never produced a bit of music, made a bit of music, just had the idea to make a record company, and it's now. So we did that in June of 2019. So we've got a little bit of time under our belts with it.
Yeah. So when she says Coulter and Vinny, she's talking about Coulter Wall and Vincent Neil Emmerson, who, it's talked about a lot also on this show that I'm not a super huge country music aficionado. But I, through Connie and her having me do work for them, I have actually become a fan of both of them quite a bit. And, Vincent Neil Emmerson, like, it's one of those things where, even if you aren't a fan of a particular genre of anything, whether it's movies or music or art or whatever, when you are in the face of the genuine article, you can't deny it. And that is definitely the case with Coulter and Vinny, but I lean a little more towards Vinny, just by personal preference. Like, you sent me a little advance of the new record so I could work on this shirt design, and it's one of the best records I've ever heard in my life by anybody. It's amazing, and when it comes out, people are gonna shit. It's so good.
Whoa, that's an extreme reaction. Yeah, that's one of the things that Travis and I are looking for in the people that we're working with on the label is, sincerity and genuine and, great songwriters, great storytellers is really what it comes down to. Telling a story with the songs, telling a story with the music. And if you could pair those two things up and then, have us do what we do and what our expertise is, we hope that's a great combo.
Yeah. I mean, with your design sense and your art direction, everything involved with the label and both of those artists has been top notch. And I'm happy to have, I'm happy to be a continued part of that. And, I really like the work. I really like the work that you send me all the time. Like doing shirt designs and stuff for those guys is really cool for me because it is a little bit of a break from, all the hardcore and death metal stuff.
Yeah.
Which I do appreciate. And I, always like stretching my wings out a little bit. And, as you are aware, like, for a long time, like I was doing a lot of work for like the pop country bands.
Yeah.
So I kind of dipped my feet into that, but that one sucked because it wasn't even like I could listen to the music and enjoy it and then, make something that was like inspired by, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
I don't give a shit about Georgia Florida Line or whatever they're called. Like,
but those designs that you did are still great for them because I just have a belief, a great designer can just do anything that you give them to do, and you definitely can. I mean, your portfolio is all over the map, and it's great. And fortunately for me, starting doing gig posters way back in 1997, that first crew of all of us that got together are people that I'm still friends with, and I know you are. Just tons of people that went to that first flat stock in 2002 in San Francisco. I've been able to transition in since Print Mafia ended in 2017, transition over into my merch company, and I know the best guys and women to do whatever look I need. All I've got to do is pull back through my gig poster friends. So and I know everyone, other personalities. I know who to go to for a certain thing, who's best at this, and who's gonna want to do it also. So that's such fortunate for that past career. I've been able to just keep up with my friends in this new era.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. We were talking a little bit before we started recording a little bit about that, where it's like there is a core of us who are still in contact. Who, I mean, we all work together on the regular, like me and you and me and Jim, Kozik and Bobby Dixon and Richie Goodtimes and, Dan Stiles. And like, there's like, all of us are kind of, Billy Bowman, like there's like a group of us that are always in contact with each other doing stuff. And, I might not have something that's right for what my skill set is, and I can send that to someone else. Or
right.
If I have a problem that I need to solve, I know somebody else in our little group knows how to fix that. And like, it's like we have like this amazing group of resources. It's awesome. Like, I have a lot of gigposters.com alumni who are listeners and guests on this show. So it's a pretty common, it's a pretty common topic. And so nobody's really surprised by it at this point, but yeah, it's cool. It's like,
yeah,
it's like, I didn't
we
go
all
to college. I didn't go to college, so I don't have like people I went to college with, like some people like stay in touch with their college friends like forever, or like, or in the military, like I was in the Marine Corps, and it's like, that's who you guys are for me. It's like my old college friends or my old military buddies. Yeah.
Imagine if we all pulled ourselves together into one agency, what we would be doing. Maybe nothing would get done. I don't know.
God, that's like, yeah. I mean, there's some people there. There's some people who have gone on to be very high level professionals, like crazy high level professionals. The people who are still doing this and maintain their livelihood doing this are the right people, really, and the people who stayed in our group are also the right people. So, I feel good about it.
Yeah. I think we're all of us are the ones that are like, well, what else would we do if we weren't doing this?
I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know at this point what I could do if if my hands got cut off, or if I became blind or something. Like, what would I do? I don't even know. Like, I think I'd just have to get a job at Home Depot or something. Like, I don't think I'm equipped for much of anything else at this point.
Yeah, definitely not for me out in the public world. I wouldn't do well. So that's a good incentive to keep pushing forward and keep making sure that I can still do the stuff I want to do.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that would be weird. Like, I do have those moments where I'm like, could I work with other people at this point? Like, would I be able to know how to, like, would I be able to interact with people, in a work environment?
Yeah.
Because it's like, my patients were always, bare minimum with other coworkers to begin with most of the time. And now that I haven't had to deal with them in so long, I don't even know. I have to tell you, I don't know if I could stay employed.
Yeah, no, I would be unemployed or possibly arrested if I had to go out back into retail world. Yeah.
Oh, right. For sure. But then again, we're good at what we do, and that's why we're able to do it.
Right.
I will fully toot my own horn to the fact that I worked very hard to be good enough at what I do to be able to stay working for myself, for sure.
Exactly. Just learning how to roll with the punches and the roll with the flow of all the changing things that we've all been through is a skill in itself, I think.
Yeah. I mean, just the way these industries change, especially the music industry over the last 20 years, where, it went from, you got a record deal and you sold records, and if you did well, you made money off of record sales, and then you go on tour and you can make a little bit more money going on tour. And then if you had a good following, you can make some money selling some t-shirts. And now it's exactly the opposite of that. You get a merch deal and you sell t-shirts. And if that does really well, then you take that on the road, and it's like literally gone the exact opposite direction. And, I think, I read something where it's like, the only music people are willing to pay for is on vinyl records. Like, nobody will buy CDs. Nobody will pay for streamable music. And it's like, unless it's a subscription to something, like nobody's like buying MP3 tracks or anything.
I can completely attest to that being true. The vinyl boom that, gets brought up in the news and online a lot is an actual real thing. You can believe in it. That is what we are making. That's what, with my artists that I do the merch management side of my stuff, CDs are an after. We're actually doing a release where we're not even making CDs coming up this year. We were like, the distributor we were working with was like, oh, we think we need 1,500 CDs, and I'm like, I think we need 0 CDs. They cost too much to make for the number that we have to make to get a price that's reasonable. And we'll never move those. So, but the vinyl, for sure, let's make as much of that as we can. We cannot keep up with the demand for it, with the label, with our artists. The business to get in now, somebody needs to open vinyl pressing plants, because that's the thing. It's 5 to 6 months to get a record pressed right now.
Yeah. I mean, and it's been that way for years. Mm-hmm. When I was art directing at Slope Records for 3 or 4 years, it was 6 months out for releases. Mm-hmm. I feel like one new plant has for sure opened in the last decade in the States, but I think we've also lost a couple other plants. Like there used to be one out here. I think it was called Rainbow Records out in literally right where I live. But I was talking to Dan Hall from Riding Easy Records, and he was saying that, they're gone now. And it's like, how could that even be with but again, I don't know,
Yeah.
I think sometimes business models grow, you grow your business, and then when it shrinks, it's so huge that maybe sometimes it's too big to scale back. And it seems like maybe something like a pressing plant was like one of those things where it's like, we can't scale back with all this equipment we have. And I mean, again, like I'm fully speculating, so I don't know.
Right.
I agree with you. There needs to be more plants in the States or anywhere, because if 6 months to get any product manufactured in the year 2021 it's too long.
I mean, to do an adequate plan for a record, you do need a good period of time, and 6 months is fine. You've got a lot of assets together, a lot of relationships to build, a lot of things to grease behind the scenes. You want to give a publicist time to get the word out, because the worst thing you can do is put all your time, effort, money, and an artist put all their heart and soul into a piece of music, and then you don't give it the launching pad that it needs. That's horrible. But sometimes you just want to, be a little punk rock about it. And hey, let's go down and cut this couple of sides for this single, put it out as a nice surprise, a nice gift, especially during pandemic. It would have been so nice for people to, have some things to look forward to get from the record store, to order online. But no, I mean, those pressing plants dictate how long you have to wait to be able to put out your piece of product. And it's not like ordering up 100 t-shirts or some hats or whatever.
Right.
That's relatively quick. An album, you've got to get the stuff in on a deadline, and then you've got to look at competing with the calendar of all the other releases that are coming out. You don't want to do all of this and then put something out when it's your competition, or spots in the store are filled up. So it's a lot of stuff that I never thought I'd be worrying about, but now I am.
That's awesome. Are you finding yourself enjoying running a record label?
Yeah, I really am. I mean, it's gone from when I was a little kid. My brother and sister were 9 and 10 years older than me. So in the 70s, in the 70s, I would be riding around in my sister's Trans Am, and she had an 8-track player in there, and I'm in the, she has to tag me along because my parents are doing something like, you take Connie with you, and there was a place in our town that was sort of like the Emporium in Dazed and Confused, like the high school kids all hung out, played pool, and did whatever in there.
Sure.
So here I am, this little ass kid, hanging around there, but we'd be riding around her Trans Am, and she would have her, her AC/DC 8 tracks and Thin Lizzy and Aerosmith and all that. I'm looking at all this artwork on these things and listening, and you're just in this weird world of these teenagers, and then there's my brother who was more of a stay at home in the shag carpet room with the black lights, listening to Pink Floyd, and that stuff, and I'm in there looking at these albums, and I always thought, like, how does this, where does this all come from? Like, what is this record? Where does it come from? How's it made? All these kind of things, to, growing up and then working in another aspect of the music business, which was making the merch and the posters that we did, and dealing with managers and bands and those, and promotion companies and things like that, to now coming full scope around to being the person that, has my hand right in the making of those records, so it's a total full circle for me. And when we got Vincent's first, vinyl came in, because that's the first one that we made, and so excited to get those boxes and pop them open and look at the thing, because here I was able to make this art, that I had spent my whole life and in my childhood, thinking about. So I'm enjoying it. I mean, definitely it's been a nice transition for me.
Yeah, man, I can totally relate to that. Like just being like that same exact way, just like pouring through my dad's record collection and just be looking at the album covers and being like,
yeah.
There's so much, album cover art to me it is my favorite type of art. And it's always fascinated me, especially, people who are our age and we grew up looking at covers for art, when we were really little from records from the 60s and 70s. And, there were whole companies that just did, Hypnosis and stuff, who just did album cover art. That was what that company did. It wasn't even like you hired a freelance guy to like, you went to this company and they had a building with a secretary and a lounge and like 30 people working on designs. And it was like, that was, and so the art was, a lot of times it was like that stuff where it's like, I look at like Rolling Stones album cover, like Let It Bleed, and it's like that stack of stuff on a record, and it's like on a record player, and it's like, as a little kid, I would look at that and I'd be like, why is all that stuff on here? Like, what does this mean? What does it have to do with this record? Like, I knew who the Rolling Stones were because like that was my dad's favorite band, and I was like, trying as a young person, as a little tiny person, to gather up like what are they trying to say with this, and how does it relate? And that was like what hooked me so bad to wanting to make art for bands, is just that whole thing of the connection between the visual representation of the music on the record, and and then getting to be a teenager and getting into punk rock and stuff, and it's like, and now and that art, and immediately transferring from like, looking at a Who album cover and what does that mean, or Led Zeppelin or whatever, and then going straight to like a Minor Threat record that's like very clearly you could tell what the messages were on the punk rock records, and then everything in between. And man, like there's so many records in my life that I bought and never even listened to because I bought it because I like the art on it, and CDs were such a huge bummer for me, and cassette tapes, because the art got so small. It was like, it wasn't even an important part of the release, and so to have it being back big again is I love it.
The CDs and the cassettes, inside the plastic thing took away from the feel and the touch of that album, and especially the gatefolds when you could open them up. So much of that stuff for me, I still, when I hear a song come on from that era of me being a kid and listen to those albums, I see those album covers when I listen to stuff, because they were creating a world then. And so that's with like the deluxe editions that I do of the albums. We always do the gatefolds, and I get the special printing from my favorite printer in the world, Stoughton Printing, out there in California. They do the old style where they print the paper and then glue it to the boards, and that thing cracks open when you open it the first time, and there's a smell of that glue on there. It's intoxicating for me, but so that's my thing, is like trying to create, like, I want somebody to be walking through the record store and go, even if they don't know the name Coulter Wall or Vincent Neil Emmerson, if they see the cover, I want them to know what they're going to get when they, or be able to imagine what that is, or have it reinforced when they do listen that this is a perfect package. So album cover, I'm with you. Album cover art is one of my favorite, styles of art, and then package design, vintage packaging things. So this is a perfect combination of those things.
Yeah, well, you've got that nailed for sure. Like, I'm fortunate that we do enough work that you send me care packages, and so I get all this stuff, and you do a really good job of that. And I to kind of speak a little bit to that, like, I'm kind of famous in the design world for being very pro the packaging should match what it is you're going to get. That was kind of like one of the things like on gigposters.com that I was kind of constantly harassing people about, like, you know, doing a poster is an advertisement, the same as an album cover is an advertisement to a certain extent. Like, you want to speak to the people that you want to go to that show.
Yep.
Even if they don't know, like, if some kid walks up to the record store and he doesn't know who High on Fire is, you need to tell that kid what High on Fire is.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to get the people you want interested in. And so, you know, as much as like, you know, kind of going back to like the 60s and 70s stuff where it was a lot more abstract a lot of the times, you know, where the album cover art was almost its own art and it didn't always match up with what the record was. And,
right.
Yeah, I think me and you are both definitely more on the literal side of things, which, I mean, whenever I am making art for any band or artist, that is always where I come from first. Like, I'm trying to make something that their fans are going to immediately understand and want, unless I'm asked to do something different, you know, like if I'm asked to do like a more metal design for like a pop artist, like I get that too. I get that. But, you know, my first approach is always like, you know, if I'm doing a shirt for Coulter Wall, like I know exactly who his audience is and what they're going to want to see. And so, you know, it's important to me too.
And back with Print Mafia, that's how we were with the posters. We would research the bands. We would, if we could, talk to them or find out what they liked and try to work those things in, or what the, you know, hey, what are your fans like, you know? And then I know that, you know, when this happened, when that was taken out of our hands, when management of the bands took over and started saying, hey, these posters are really popular and they sell, we could start making money on these. And so we want to control them. And that's when things, I think, started to just slowly go south for the gig poster game. That, and also when artists would make posters that had, you know, their piece of art, insert band name, you know, and you could tell whose poster it was, and whether you saw the band name or not, you knew that. That's sometimes a good thing, but, you know, having a recognizable style. But maybe when those didn't meet and it was just, I'll do this piece of art so I can put this name on it and satisfy this contract, then I'll strip that name off and make an art print of it. It's like, that's a total weird thing. I mean, I can't say that we weren't.
That was never how I wanted to do it, but, you know, I can think of 5 people right off the top of my head who have full on art careers because they did that. And so, you know, you know, I'm still, you know, not that I decided not to do that. I decided specifically to be a problem solver as a designer. Like, you have, no matter what it is you have, if you can send it to me and I'll figure out how to get something done for it, which is why I can do country music and why I can do death metal and why I can do punk rock and why I can do, you know, I did shirts for Lionel Richie. You know what I mean? Like, give me your problem and I'll solve it for you. You know, like that
Jim, speaking of Lionel Richie, Jim and I got hired to do an editorial illustration for Lionel Richie for AARP magazine. So, I mean, awesome. You know, who looks at our poster work and says, yes, Lionel Richie and AARP, but somebody did, you know?
Yeah, that's amazing. I don't know if I've ever even seen that. You have to send that. I have to find that. I need to see what that looks like. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But again, like, you know, I was just like, oh, he was like a super huge star in the 80s when I was like into like hardcore punk, and I didn't give a shit about Lionel Richie. But you know what? I know exactly what 80s design looks like. So if I want, you know, the 45 to 65-year-old mom to go to see Lionel Richie, have her glass of white wine while she's watching, and then go over to the merch booth and buy a shirt that is going to bring her back to 1985 when Lionel Richie was her favorite artist. I mean, that's, you know.
You can't go wrong if that's your intent. Is to
that's always my intent.
Yeah, you can't go wrong if you make something that makes that person feel nostalgic for the artist they're seeing or the time that that person was big. When if you're going with a legacy act kind of thing, you can't go wrong. I mean, there's a pull of nostalgia.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's that's kind of where I ended up tailoring my career is, and then I taught myself all the other shit, how to airbrush and how to paint and use automotive paint so I can custom paint things. And I always have so many ideas in my head about shit I want to do that I'm just always kind of trying to learn something new.
Right. Right.
But yeah, one of the other things, to go back a tiny bit, one of the things that's totally bizarre to me is the resurgence of cassette tapes.
Yeah.
I have bands that I've done artwork for where the cassette tape sells out. What?
Yeah.
It's the literal worst. It's the worst delivery system for music possible. It's too small. It sounds like shit. It's totally damageable. The literal worst. And it's kids love cassettes. And I guess it's part of the reason why we like vinyl. Just hope that the 8-track never comes back, because that was possibly worse than a cassette tape.
There's a place in Texas, I don't remember the exact name, but they are releasing 8-tracks. But it's kind of cool. What they're doing is they're going back and buying, flea market stocks of things and back stocks and repurposing old ones. So you could say, hey, I want to run, 500 Coulter Wall 8-tracks. Can you put them only in old Willie Nelson cases? And they would be like, sure. So they've got a little weird thing going on there for, it's kind of cool, but I don't want to play a damn 8-track at all.
It'll change tracks right in the middle of the song. What is that? No music artist in the history of the world was 8 tracks for me. That's the best way to go. It skips tracks right in the middle of my song. I love it. It's fantastic.
Plus you got to jam that thing in so hard you're damaging it every time you play it, cramming it into the player. But I'll tell you what I do like about 8 tracks is the bootleg 8 tracks, where it wasn't the real art on it. It was some company, some guy somewhere with somebody that knew how to do some paste up and layout, putting some weird ass photo or drawing or something that has just nothing to do with whatever is on the tape. I collect those things.
Yeah, I have a bunch of cassette tapes, flea market, swap meet cassette tapes from the 80s, when me and my friends would it was there was always right where I grew up, there was a drive-in movie theater, and every Saturday and Sunday was the big swap meet flea market.
Yeah.
And it was we would go every weekend, and it was always you knew where the Army surplus guy was if you needed a pair of boots or an Army jacket or whatever. And then there was one booth that was all heavy metal stuff, jewelry and banners and tapestries and bootleg shit. And then there was the cassette tape guys, and it was there was stuff you could get like the original 2 Live Crew stuff that wasn't available on the West Coast because they were selling out of a trunk of a car. So the only way you could get it was these bootlegs. I still have a bunch of those, and it was the art was just a little square in the middle with white on both sides. They didn't try in any way to reformat it at all.
No,
and it's
no.
Yeah. So yeah, cassette tapes is at least they're still making cassette tape players. I don't think I've seen anybody we are making 8 tracks. We're bringing it back.
No.
How do you play 8 tracks in the 2021? I guess there's got to be old stock still around or old units, but
yeah, our locally owned record store here in town, the guy's got a lot of old systems that he'll bring because it is, it's nostalgic. People do want to have the old equipment, younger people. And admittedly, when I went to set up a record playing station in my living room, I had my dad's old equipment, like a 1979 Panasonic turntable that also had the 8-track and the cassette on the front of the thing, but I went to listen to a test pressing of one of the records that we were getting produced, and the shit was so out of whack in that thing. I was like, and I didn't know it because it sounded okay on some songs, but then I was like, I can't use this anymore. And I ended up, shelling out the bucks and getting the new shiny, fancy, new machine. And of course, it's a much better listening experience, but damn, the other stuff just looks so cool, you know? Like I had the cool speakers with the cloth in them and the patterns and everything's wood grain on the equipment. And, you know, it's just not the same. But unless you're some genius at, you know, home electronics, fixing those up is not good.
Yeah. I think that there must be people online you can send it to who will do that stuff for you too, like refurbish your old equipment. And you know, we bought our house like 4 years ago, and we've been slowly renovating, and we're about to get started on the big living room, kitchen, full on thing. Like we are literally in the beginning phases of that. We're getting like a bunch of plans made for that. One of the things that we're looking for like a hi-fi system that has modern stuff, but looks like an old hi-fi. So it has like Bluetooth, but it also has a record player. It also has a cassette player. It also has the cool built-in speakers with the cloth fronts. And like, you know, there are places that make that stuff, but it ain't cheap.
No, it ain't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think ever a hi-fi system was cheap, new, like even back in the time. But what a weird thing that was like ubiquitous. Like you went into every house when we were kids, and people had that. It was just a giant cabinet with like it was like everything built into one. And I think my next door neighbors, when I was growing up, theirs even had a TV in it. It was like a TV. In the front of it, and then it had like, like even had a TV. Like they literally had an entertainment center. Like, but yeah, I'm looking forward to like having a record player again, because I haven't had one in at least a decade, and I've still been collecting vinyl, so I have like tons and tons of records that are still plastic sealed. You know,
since I've started buying records again and got my system set up and stuff, you know what I've discovered that it does for me is, unlike putting on the Bluetooth speaker from my Spotify or whatever, like I find that I put that on and I work or I do something that way. If I put on a record, I don't do that. I actually allow myself a little bit of time to just kind of sit and be with it. And I needed that, especially in 2020. That's, you know, that was my mid 2020 project, was like, I'm going to get this record player going, you know, and then went through a lot of trials and tribulations with it. But, you know, in the holidays and stuff, I found a bunch of old, you know, country music Christmas albums and put those on just for the novelty of it. But then I found that I really enjoyed, like, you know, the tree's up and it's playing this old 60s country Christmas songs. And we just kind of sat and listened to them. It was nice, you know? So, because I know you're like me and like we put on media and other things, but we're working when we do it, you know? Like that's, I watch a lot of television, and people are like, how can you watch so much television? I'm like, hey, I got one eye on that TV and I've got one eye on the screen, and I know what I can and cannot watch while I work. You know, there's categories of shows. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, that's like a hard thing, is it's like, you know, at some point over the last few years, I gave up trying to watch anything while I'm working. Like I just do music and podcasts now. And one of the cripplers for sure was like, I really wanted to watch Narcos on Netflix, but you can't, it's all subtitled in Spanish, and like you cannot work and watch it at the same time. And the same kind of thing with Peaky Blinders was like the same thing, where it was a show that I needed to watch and I couldn't, but like, you know, like, I kind of switched away from it.
I tried Peaky Blinders. I got to like the middle of the second episode and I was like, I have no idea what I've just watched for an hour and a half. I've got to put that one away and come back. But I'm really good at knowing immediately if it's a work show or if it's a sit down and you know, put myself into it kind of thing. That's one thing. When Mark Brickey from Adventures in Design podcast, we do a lot of TV podcasting, and we're both that way. It's like he'll be like, there's a good work show, you know, and text it to me, or we both know what we like for that.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if I'm going to have a movie or TV on while I'm working, it has to be something that I've seen a million times, so I can listen to it as much as it is watch it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I still do enjoy doing that once in a while, but there's so many good podcasts now that fulfill that need of having information go in that I don't necessarily have to focus all of my attention on. You know what I mean? Like, there's like, it's like, you know, it's like putting on Spotify and just throwing on a radio station, and it's like you just let it run and you can enjoy it in like little bits, like, oh, that's awesome, this song's on, and then go back to focusing on whatever it is you're doing. Cause
right.
Weird, you know, like it you know, everybody as they get older and they start looking back at the world and where they came from, has the moments where you're like, well, if you'd have told me this many years ago that this is how I'd be doing something, I'd have thought you were crazy, spaceman. And it's like, if you would have told me 20 years ago that, like, pre-Napster, that only streaming music was how I was going to listen to music, like, I'd have been like, nah, no way, you know?
Yeah. It took me a long time to get over myself and come around to Spotify and things like that. Because I had my iPod, my 160 gig iPod that had 25,000 songs on it, my custom curated playlists. I had a playlist for any trip, any mood, any type of people that were in the car with me or whatever. And, you know, I would take I would say, like, I need to spend some alone time with my iPod, you know, like take a half a day and go in and take things out that I was tired of and put new things in. And, you know, I spent a big effort with that, and I just lived with that thing. And then, I mean, it was as essential to me as like my wallet and keys when I would leave the house, plug it into the car and go. And then some fools broke into my car in our driveway, and the one thing they took, the iPod. They left my Ray-Ban sunglasses. They left all kinds of stuff. Took my iPod. I mean, it was like a punch in the gut, like in the chest, like that's like I rifled around in the car. I was like, oh no, just could have never imagined being without it. So I even like shuffled around with people and tried to find somebody that had one that they weren't using that I could get. But going back, it was an impossibility to recreate the what I had in that iPod. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get this Spotify subscription. And now I'm just like Spotify maniac. I mean, well, you know, we've been in that playlist group, which is now a little bit defunct, but a bunch of us poster folks
I just got too busy with the podcast to keep up with it. And then some of those maniacs was like, you were getting like 100 messages a day. It's like, stop it.
Yeah. They're chatty Cathy's for sure on there.
Oh, yeah. And I love it. I'm being facetious. Like I loved it. But at the same time, it's like, you know, I got work to do, boys.
Yeah. I think that's kind of how we've all gotten now. But that was a good like 6 months or so of playlist making. I love to make Spotify playlists, but not on on a schedule, like one a week to get posted by a certain time.
I still make one a week with whatever I listen to in the studio. Like every Friday there's a new playlist up that's 2 hours long and has whatever. Either was like one of the things I've started doing is like if we're like, as an example, we're rewatching Breaking Bad right now, and so it's like there'll be a song on the outro credits where I'll be like, oh, what song is that? And then I'll throw that on the playlist. So what I'm watching gets put on the playlist. Songs from that gets put on my playlist as well. But you know, I've been doing it now for a few years. I have a couple hundred playlists if people follow me on my Spotify. It's like, you know, and it went from like, it has caused my listening to expand so much by listening to so many different things to help make my playlists a little bit more interesting. And then, you know, but I'll never put anything on there that I don't personally like either. Yeah. Even if I've listened to it, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that is a thing. I like the, you know, the made for you lists that Spotify will send me. A lot of times they're dead wrong, but sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I listened to this for a few weeks and then now you found these other things that you think I will like. And guess what I do? So I mean, I don't see, other than the, you know, the amount of money that they take in versus what they pay out.
Nobody likes that. Nobody's happy about that. No. Except for Spotify. I'm sure they're plenty happy about that. But
but I mean, it's from the record label side of it though. I mean, it's a good tool. It's essential, you know, getting on those playlists for your artists. It can be make or break. They're not easy to get on, and you know, they get to a lot of people, which increases your plays and increases the people who will then go out and buy your music. And, I'm not shilling for Spotify here, but, if you can get on those playlists, it works out well for you. So.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I can imagine it's, if you can get, as a podcaster, if you can get featured anyway on their podcasting portion, like that's got to be super helpful. And I don't know, something like that is happening with my show, and I cannot track down where it is, but I have gotten such a massive bump in the last 6 weeks in my amount of plays. I've got to be featured somewhere.
Yeah.
And I can't quite figure out where it is because it's not coming from one particular place.
Okay. As a podcaster, especially a new one, does the lack of metrics and ability to see where and what you're doing and impacting, does it not so frustrating for you with podcasts? You can get a certain amount of data, but at the same time, it's not like you can track a song or an album or a video even that you release. The podcast thing is such a mystery as far as your reach.
Yeah. I had Nick from the Tennish podcast on my podcast. That if you have never listened to the Tennish podcast, you absolutely should. You'll probably love it. It is a show where two hosts, and one of them brings a top 10 list and the other one has to guess what's on it. So it's like the fastest land animals. And then the other one has to guess what the 10 fastest land animals are. And they're hilarious together. So you're learning something and you're laughing. It's a really great show. But I was talking to him and about, because they're all like on a podcast network. They're like a what I would consider to be a real professional podcast. They're which is where I'm getting there. But he said that he put me onto a thing called PodTrack, and it's literally just stats tracking. You put a little link in your RSS feed, and I am hosted by, I won't necessarily say people know where my stuff is posted. I don't really want to give an ad out for them, but the stats I get from them, they're, how much money I make on advertising is based on those numbers,
right?
And they're way shy of what PodTrack sends me. And so, it's one of those things where I can get the real analytics from PodTrack that I'm not getting from my podcast shows. I mean, they're very, very close, but PodTrack.
Well, see, I kind of phased out doing mine early 2020, just with some other things were going on in life and work, and just didn't want to put time into it. But at that time, I just found it wildly like the wild west of not knowing what you're putting something out and you're getting feedback, but you're just not quite sure. I'm sure if I got back into it now that maybe it's changed, but I just, I like to have some sort of idea. But that PodTrack sounds like it's something
it's really
to
good.
get.
It's really good. And, over the pandemic, like, I think the amount of podcasts tripled because people didn't have shit to do.
Right.
And so I'm patiently waiting for the world to open back up so people go back to work and stop podcasting. So I don't have as much competition for people's ears. But we were talking a little bit before we got going about how the fact that, the vast majority of the new podcasts are all true crime podcasts because that's the genre that you can, I think it's the easiest one to step into and be able to get an audience quickly. My problem with it is A, there's just way too many of them, and B, like trying to find some true crime that I haven't heard of or that people haven't heard of is I mean, you can only listen to so many people talk about the Manson family. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And once you've heard last podcast on the left do it, you don't need to listen to anybody else do it because nobody will do it better than they do.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Which happens to be the case with, once I started listening to last podcast on the left, I left most other true crime shows behind because they can't compare. Although there's one like Somebody Knows Something is a good one. And, what's the other one? Up and Vanished is also very good. But yeah, and what was it? The Dr. Death and Dirty John, like those ones were, those ones were really, really good. Yeah. So, I'm in arts and entertainment and music and stuff. And I think there's less competition for me. And that is the most important thing I gleaned from all of the information I took in about how to have a chance at having a successful podcast was you just got to put out an episode every week. Be consistent, put out an episode every single week. And if you keep doing that, you're going to outlast almost everybody else. And I don't know, so far so good. Things are going fast now.
Well, yeah, because when we like something and it's done well and we're interested in it, we look forward to it. So if you look forward to the next week and it's like, oh, it's going to be another 3 days, or, number one, it just puts off a vibe that you're not going to be around. So why would I invest myself in this if you're not taking it seriously? And then also you just want to feed that interest and that obsession. For sure.
Yeah, well, it's like one of those things. It's like if I can't be a part of a podcast where it's like, I'm going to get an episode and then next week I get one and then I don't get one for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
Yeah.
Like I'll forget. I'll forget. If something's not part of my routine, I'll totally forget.
Yeah.
And that's one of the maybe it satisfies one of the things that we've lost in television where, it's like Sunday night, I'm going to sit down and watch The Sopranos. Yeah. And now it's like, you go on Netflix, you watch the whole damn season at once. And so you don't get that same ritual.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of why podcasting is popular is, people, you do have to wait for a new episode.
Yeah.
Every week,
Well, TV is my expertise. And let me tell you.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah. Let me tell you that recently, like HBO Max, going back to the 1 episode a week of things and coming in with some strong shows is just tearing me up because I've gotten so used to that binging. But at the same time, I hate the binging because, you're what could be 12 weeks of great entertainment is in some instances for us 2 days, like we'll just sit down and slam that in. Yeah. It's a weekend. And we're like, oh, well, we're done with this. When's the next one come out? I'm like, probably next year. Stacey's like, but, so our current thing is, that new HBO Max, Kate Winslet show, Mayor of Easttown.
Yeah, we're gonna get going on that. I heard it's really good.
The first one aired and Stacey didn't even know what we were watching it on, and she was like, wait, that's it? That's the wait. And I was like, yeah, we gotta wait till next week. She was like, oh, well, fuck, like pissed off. So, then we got the second one and I'm going to highly recommend it to anyone after 2 episodes. Of course, I love Kate Winslet anyway. And I love I love the it does give you a bit of true crime thing, small town mystery, very relatable characters. We all know these working class folks that, in this town, all the characters went to high school together, grew up together, have gone on, done their various jobs, had their families or whatever, and then you throw in a crime in the middle of that. I mean, it's really good. So.
Yeah. HBO is still the top dog. No matter what, they still make the best shows. Like, I'm like a huge fan of Mindhunter, obviously on Netflix, and that's as good as anything on HBO. But HBO still, Showtime's on the come up a little bit lately. The last few years, they've put on some shows that are nearly as good or as good as HBO stuff. But forever, starting with Sopranos, that HBO was the pinnacle of like, my problem with HBO Max is there's so much stuff on there now that I'm like, it used to be like you could count on HBO to put out like 3 new shows a year. You would get a continuation of the 3 they had. And then as those were wrapping up, you'd start getting the new ones and you just transition in and it would be like, oh, well, what Girls isn't for me. I'm not going to watch that show and I'll move on to some other thing. But they did that thing where it was like, they had Sex in the City. And then it was like, And then right after that, they did Girls, and it's the same show. It's just for a different age group,
different generation. Yeah.
And then they had like, they had what was the dude version, Entourage.
Oh
right?
yeah.
And then like they tried to do like How to Make It in America, which was the hipster version of that, and it did not do well at all. That was not a good show.
No.
But like you could almost always count on. There was a curated enough list of stuff that they put money into that you could pretty much be sure that it was gonna have a fighting chance. And now I look on there and I'm like, oh, there's like 20 new shows. Like, I don't know if any of these are any good. And then I watch them, like, all of this stuff looks like it's for people in their 20s and 30s. And like, I'm getting to that old man stage where I'm like, I can't relate. to half of this stuff.
Where they succeeded in not for the 20s, people were things like a True Detective. I think
that's one of those any age group can
and I think that's what they're going to get with this Mayor of Easttown. I think it's going to be really under the radar for a little bit until it's all out, and then HBO. Everybody complains, I'm going to cut the cord, I'm going to do this or whatever, but I mean,
not on HBO.
No, it's worth it. I mean, even weird, odd, crazy things like Lovecraft Country, which was a wild, wild ride. It's like, you're not going to get that anywhere else. If you get it on Netflix or Hulu or, Hulu's its own weird thing. Mm-hmm. Everything has to be very artsy or political or odd on there. I mean, there's some things I like, but yeah, HBO, I think it's just like, it's always been around since I was a kid. It's like I can count on HBO. I know I'm good there.
Exactly. TV's gotten super strange. Like my wife makes her living most primarily from Netflix stuff. She had like for the last 5 years, like that's been our bread and butter around here. And so we're definitely big on Netflix, and Netflix still brings it. Like once they figured out the formula with Orange is the New Black, that was like the first one where they were they went all in, and they've done a really good job of keeping a good slate of shows on Netflix. I'm still waiting to see if they're going to be able to bring something out that can compete with Game of Thrones and how epic that was. Like, I don't know who is going to be able to.
Well, HBO's bringing the prequel to.
I thought that got canceled.
Nope, it's back. They're already.
Okay, well, we're going to be in on that.
I think the lead is Naomi Watts on that, which is interesting.
That is interesting. That's a big star that's a pretty big star, because the original show didn't really. One of the great things, it didn't have big stars.
It made big stars. It made big stars,
and then you could like. They were the character and not the actor playing the character, which sometimes is a thing, Sometimes that's a thing that will break things for me, where I'm watching. I'm like, no, that's,
that's so-and-so, and it's always going to be so-and-so. Yeah.
Yep. That whole typecasting thing is a fucking weird thing.
There's a really good show on HBO Max that I want to mention to you because I think you'll like it. Mark Wahlberg's behind the scenes reality thing of his entrepreneurial pursuits. It's called Wall Street, WAAHL. Mm-hmm. It's just 30-minute episodes. I think there was 6 or 7 of them. Really, really good for anybody doing their own thing and trying to have your hand in a lot of stuff that isn't your main deal.
Right.
I got a lot out of it, so I'll pitch for that one for.
That's one of those ones that I would have looked at and went, I'm never watching that. But if you recommend it, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
I trust your opinion on pretty much anything movie and TV related. You and I have such similar tastes in almost all areas outside of music. Like that's kind of one of the areas where we haven't always met up in our taste. But as far as other art, media, and movies and stuff, our taste is like almost identical.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. Yeah. Especially movies. We like a lot of the same movies.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those things we have in common for sure.
Our 80s hooker movies, teen hooker movies.
A genre of movie that could never exist in this time. Like people are like, man, you could never make Blazing Saddles, everybody would think it was, racist and stupid, and people get all like weird and butthurt. And I'm like, yeah, but you can never make, Avenging Angel ever again either, because there's no way you're gonna have 15-year-old prostitute movies.
or Vice Squad. I mean, that's my winner from that era. That's not coming out. That's not coming out now. Yeah.
There's no way. Although at least in Vice Squad, all the prostitutes were adults. Yeah. There was a lot of those with teen prostitutes, like Streetwalking, where it's like,
and
young Melissa Leo,
and
actually,
really... and just the one just called Angel, where the girl was going to
Angel
school during the
Avenging
day.
Angel. They did like 10 of those Angel movies. Me and you we're both big, huge, but that's kind of, speaks to our age. Like, we were teenagers in the 80s, up on Friday night watching HBO, and that's what was on. Like, and Vice Squad, Hollywood Vice Squad was on, and
Cinemax was the go-to network then for that stuff, though. Cinemax was...
Cinemax started with like the softcore porn stuff, for sure, and then and it to the point where I think almost everybody on Earth just refers to it as Skinemax. Because that pretty much was what it became. The only way they could stay in business was basically being low key porn channel.
We when I was a teenager in the 80s, my dad worked in the coal mine, and he had the ability to give people extra shifts and overtime and move them around and do all this stuff. And one year he hooked this guy up with a ton of overtime and things, and that guy in his side job was installing the big huge satellite dishes, those big ones that had to turn to get the different satellites. And we got one of those for free, put in, and it had the remote that was connected with a cord to the thing, and you had to turn this dial to get the satellite, and it would make this horrendous like screeching noise out in the yard to move around. But if you turned that thing just far enough, it got to those actual porn channels,
Right.
American Triple Ecstasy was one of them that I remember. But they put that damn thing so far up on the horizon that if you were watching that as a teenager and your parents came in,
they knew you couldn't turn it off fast enough.
Because that satellite starts moving, and it takes like 5 minutes to get back down to like the regular movie channels.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Yeah, there was a kid I played hockey with whose dad was an engineer, like at one of the big cable companies in California, and they had one of those dishes, and it was like, they'd be like, yeah, on Saturday we're gonna have people over because we're gonna watch a Russian hockey game from like the Russian professional league, and like they were getting like TV from literally all over the globe. You could watch any single thing you could possibly watch from anywhere, and it was like, whoa.
Oh, we watched like NASA stuff that I'm sure wasn't meant to be seen by people. It's just whatever satellite you could get if you were flipping around enough. Yeah. Oh, the 80s, man, aren't they great? I mean, they were really bad, but they were great. Yeah.
Yeah, they really were pretty great. It was like, like everybody thinks that their teenage generation was like the last good one. Like literally everybody thinks that their teenage decade was the last good one.
Yeah.
But, I've been through a lot of decades since then, and I don't know. The 90s were okay, but
yeah.
Something about the 80s. Kind of, it feels to me, and again, this is almost certainly my perception based on my age, is that was when one of the things that changed with television was it stopped going off the air at midnight. They started selling advertising throughout the rest of the night. And so they figured out how to monetize television better in the 80s. And so you also had the pay cable networks became a real thing in the 80s. HBO, Showtime, Skinemax, like all of those became real, legitimate forms of entertainment. And then you started getting pay-per-view during that era where you could pay for special events. And so the monetization of television in the 80s, because it happened in the 80s, was when TV went from 3 channels, if you were lucky, and rabbit ears to 24-hour entertainment, 24-hour news channels like CNN and Fox News came out. Everything about television between 1980 and 1990 changed completely. And, I think that's significant.
The cable company would send out that little guide book. It was a little few page thing, but we would get that and scramble to see what movies we had seen a couple of years before that were then coming to HBO or Cinemax or wherever that we could watch as many times as we wanted. Thing. And then when the Eddie Murphy stand-ups, Raw and Delirious and stuff came on there, and you're like a kid and you're watching that stuff. But we would get that book and just like go through and mark like when stuff was going to play,
My dad videotaped everything. And so we had stacks of VHS tapes with it was like Eddie Murphy, the Young Comedian special, like all like, like my dad, the thing he would have liked to have done that he didn't do with his life, I think if he was doing it over, is he wanted to be a stand-up comic. And he could have been, for sure. My dad could have been a very successful stand-up comic. He's one of the funniest people I've ever met in my entire life. So it was like he recorded all of that. He lived for HBO comedy specials, and he put me on Carlin when I was 10 years old. And
well, that was the heyday. That was the heyday for watching comedy on TV like that. I mean, it's as opposed to the old stuff, but the Robin Williams, Whoopi Goldberg, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, man, it was just all over the place. It was great.
Yeah. And then, we got to watch some people from those young comedy specials on HBO where it's like, I remember the first time I saw Jerry Seinfeld, when he was like starting out, what I mean? Or like Drew Carey or, like a lot of those guys who were like Sinbad and, Eddie Murphy and Roseanne. I remember Roseanne's first TV appearance on one of those young comedies. It was like a Rodney Dangerfield special.
Absolutely.
And it's like, that's crazy to me that I got that, like, that's a thing. You know what I mean? It's crazy. And you know what? It totally random aside that made me think of that is apropos of nothing is I not too long ago saw Larry the Cable Guy before he adopted the Larry the Cable Guy persona when it was like he was just like I don't even know his name. He's like fucking Barry Johnson or something. And he was just doing regular stand-up comedy before he became Larry the Cable Guy. And I was like
wearing like a polo and chinos and
like styled hair. And I was like, you made the right move going with the Larry the Cable Guy thing, dude. You were never going to. It was never going to happen for you otherwise.
No.
And then I did T-shirts for Larry the Cable Guy tour, and that was the first job in merch that I got that was so far off from what I normally do that I was like, it was the first time I was like, I have no fucking idea what I'm going to do. I don't know. I don't know how to speak to these people. I don't know. I don't know anything about this guy. All I know is he makes these terrible movies that are not funny. And I knocked it out of the park. I killed it. I just figured out just do what you do, do what you do. Make something that looks like a vintage, old school, washed out, beaten up, distressed T-shirt. Do that. And,
we always found it really easy to do something for somebody that we didn't have any relationship with, any attachment to, but if you brought in that like hero status job, oh God, it instantly becomes like you never designed anything before in your life. Like we got hired to do posters for Andrew Dice Clay. And I mean, you would think that we would just be like right there on that. And we just kept going, it's Dice. I mean, it's Dice. We can't mess this up. In turn, we made ourselves mess this up,
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I that was a good learning experience for me because I just learned to stop second guessing myself on stuff and just handle it how I handle everything else. Like the way that I always approach any project is almost immediately I get an image in my mind. Like someone's like, I get an email and it's like, hey, I need designs for so-and-so. And immediately something pops into my mind, whatever it is. Like it's a weird thing. It's like an immediate thing for me where I get an idea and then like I can execute that, and it's almost always works out really well. It's when they want 4 designs and I have to start coming up with some different stuff because that first idea is almost always the best one for me.
Yeah.
And I just got good at flexing that muscle and relying on that intuition that I have about stuff. And it's done pretty well.
I can kind of pretty much say the same thing where I've rolled into now due to time and also just lack of ability for what I see in my mind of me being able to do it and do it well. I do the same thing. Like I have a vision for something and, either I can do it or I know the person that can do it. Like that thing you recently worked on for me where it was going to be a travel decal looking t-shirt. I was like, I know Mike will understand when I say what this is and how I want it altered and differently. And you were like, oh yeah, this is fine. I'll do this tomorrow. Yeah. It's
well,
yeah.
A little bit of that for sure, especially on that project was, I grew up looking at those things.
Yeah.
And so I know they're ingrained in my mind. Like I know exactly what that is and exactly what it needs to look like. And, so it wasn't, my thing was, on that project was picking the best elements of that style because it was a specific style of like, this is a place that we want you to remember going to. And so it has some mountain range or waterfall or like some some specific place attached to it almost always, even if it's like come to Arkansas, like there is some specific thing that they're it's like the Little Rock Courthouse or whatever it is. And so for me it was like I need to find something from all of those things that's non-specific. And, we figured it out. It turned out really good. And I'm excited for that to come out.
To clue the listeners in, I mean, it was my idea from a lyric from a song that's on an upcoming album. And in my mind, I just pictured traveling because the song is talking about, driving and at night. But it's almost like you're driving somewhere, but you don't know why. You've been someplace where you do these certain things and you're driving home. And it's a long drive and you're following a moon. And so I was like, so there isn't really a feature, for that because it's
aside from the moon.
The drive is
but
what
the
that one is about.
Moon's everywhere at night.
Yeah.
So
So we figured it out. Yeah, I think it ended up being great. So
well, I really love all of the work we do together. And I'm anytime, whether it's for Chicago Music Exchange or whether it's for one of your artists, you always give me cool and interesting, like we need something like this. And I'm always excited to solve that problem, whatever it is you have for me. Like I love it. I love the projects we do together. And anytime I get to do something with somebody who I respect as a person and as a professional, that's always a huge, that's a huge plus because it's not always like that for us, like sometimes you got to take work from whoever's going to give it to you. And to be able to be in a position where I can work with you on a lot of stuff is like, it's an important part of my professional career for sure, Connie. Like you got to know that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And important part for me is, going to bring my friends along and into this stuff and and then I turned you on to some country music you like, so
yeah. And like even more than that, like my kids, like I gave them that and they absolutely love Coulter and Vinny. Like I think I was telling you, like when they have parties and the guitar comes out and they're passing around, they're playing Coulter Wall and Vincent Neil Emmerson songs on that guitar with each other, at their in their LA in their LA, parties and barbecues, they're singing country songs from those two guys. And, and you do a good job of like keeping me loaded up with merch, and then they just come over and take all of it. Literally take all of it.
And I love that. We hear that a lot, that, younger people are drawn, especially to Coulter's music. I think it's just that like this generation is cutting through the bullshit. They're just like, we can recognize the fake, and it's okay when we like that, but they're starved for some real
something authentic,
genuine article, and
both of those boys are the genuine article. Like play them for my wife. The first time I played them for my wife, she was like, with Coulter, she was like, holy shit. She was like, I haven't heard anything like this since I was a kid. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, man.
Well, that's what drew me in, whenever things were winding down and, like you said about earlier, a few minutes ago about, having to sometimes take jobs from people that aren't fun or things you want to do or whatever. That was becoming the end of the Print Mafia career was, to get to do the things that we were still having fun doing. We had to take a lot of jobs for stuff that wasn't what we were, or what we were about, or what we were good at. And so then it became work. And
we just became a design agency at that point, right?
Yeah.
And
And it wasn't anything, and when you've got the way we do things, when you do everything by hand and not with computers, it's a lot of time, energy, and effort into things. And then having to go back and make changes is like ripping up a road and repaving it, and then, then to have to go out in the building and print 500 of something that you absolutely hate. Every pull that you're pulling of the image is bad. So fortunately for me, Coulter and my meeting him and the relationship, my friend Mary Spar introduced us. She was managing Coulter at the time. And
shout out Mary Spar.
Yep. And I was able to have a lifeboat at that point. It was something that I kind of was working on a little bit. And Jim and I worked on it a little bit together, but his interest in doing anything in the realm of what we were doing was really waning. He had other interests coming along, his fine art things he wanted to do, gallery stuff, project, he's into doing a project that takes 3 months, and then it's just prints when it's done. And I wasn't in that space. So luckily, fortunately, I'm a big believer in things happen for a reason, the way they're supposed to, and everything will fall together, line out. And, so that was what drew me to Coulter. What was like, man, this is like when my dad was listening and playing Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, and even further back than that, the folk stuff, so it was just like the way things are supposed to work out, and getting to work with Coulter all these years now. And then now he's on our label that we started. He came over there after we started that. And so
I'd imagine at this point, he could be on any label he wanted to be too. Like,
Yeah. He could
pretty much be on any label he wanted to.
Yeah.
So that's even, even more a testament to him being the genuine article that he knows too.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's keeping his team small. We're all, hard workers. We have good work ethic. We're all in it for the same reasons. It isn't to make $1 million, $5 million or whatever. It's to tell stories, put out good product, make something that lasts. And that's our goal with it. And if the money comes along, hey, that'd be great, But
I think with him and Vinny, it's coming. I think that, 5 years from now, you're going to look back and be like, holy shit. It's like almost every successful record label ever had that first artist that got huge and allowed you to open the doors to just raise all the boats in the harbor, and it's like, I think that's coming for you guys.
As you were saying with Coulter, that he could go anywhere. I mean, in the world that he exists in, he is huge. And so for him to have put the trust in when it was time to say where he was going to go and what he was going to do with this last album, we were blown away that he said, no, this, if you'll have me, this is where I want to be, and so that was great. And, Vincent was the first artist on there, and we formed the label just to put out his record. He had a record that was done, and Travis was going to start managing him, and they were making the rounds, to labels and different people, and everyone loved the material, loved the record, the product. He couldn't be happier about it. But they wanted to do things the Nashville music industry way, which was let's build this up and put it out 2 years from now. And I'm like, no, let's don't do that, So I went to Travis and I was like, well, what if we just started a record company and we printed up these CDs with our own money? We'll sell those to fund the vinyl run because that's what everybody wants. And, put out this vinyl ourselves and just see what happens. And maybe, great things happen, or maybe this is his bolster to go on and to some other label and to do something. And we find something else that we want to do again, that we feel passionate about. But, we've kind of become family with Vincent, and we all recently got our matching La Honda tattoos. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't.
Yeah. we were in Nashville for a weekend with a La Honda event, and all of our artists and everything. Well, not Coulter, because he's working on a ranch in Texas in his time off. He likes to go down there and be a working guy. Sure. And so he wasn't there, but everybody else, when we had a showcase show and everything. And then I had some free time, and I was like, I got a spot. And my friend is tattooer down here. And I said, hey, can you fit me in? I'm going to do this logo. And I messaged everybody, and I was like, hey, do you guys want to, I'll pay for these tattoos if you want to get them. And so we've all got that buffalo logo on our arms there now. So it's pretty cool.
That buffalo logo, me and you have talked about it, privately about how I think it's one of the best logos I've ever seen in my life. Who did that logo? Weird
Beard, David Metal. Are you familiar?
I'm not familiar.
I know he's done some of that psycho
I just
stuff.
know Weird Beard is a song by Fu Manchu that I love.
He does Fu Manchu albums and artwork for them and stuff. Then, he's Weird Beard 72. Everyone go look up Weird Beard 72. Yeah. Just met him randomly through the poster deal, and we've just become the same kind of friends that I am with so many people, where we're just like texting about Susie Quattro or whoever. Right. Weirdness. And then, but I was like, man, I had this vision for the logo. I was like, I'm the third eye mindset thing is one of the things that I'm into, like you open up your third eye, and like sure. It's just a whole like being aware of everything around you. Travis has always had this alter ego of like the white buffalo. One time he had a mystical experience in California with a buffalo at some sort of event. I don't know. He said this buffalo saw into his mind or something. I'm not really sure, but
sounds like he had a fun time.
Yeah. And then, with the name, La Honda was a name that I had been batting around for a good 10 years, trying to find some use for it. And Jim and I had a clothing t-shirt line that went through Dillard's department stores. And so I got a little taste of that clothing line stuff. And I was like, man, if I was ever to do this again, I think I would call it La Honda. Now, La Honda is the Honda, California. Mm-hmm. And I only ever heard of that name based on seeing a documentary about Ken Kesey and the acid tests that they lived in La Honda, and the Grateful Dead would go there and do that. Then I looked up the town and saw Neil Young had lived there, and Allen Ginsberg and Hunter S. Thompson and all these people. And I was like, man, I love that name. I love it. So
it was where all the rich hippie musicians lived in the Bay Area during that time. It was like you didn't live in San Francisco and you didn't live in Oakland. Yeah. You lived in La Honda because you could get to the city or Oakland pretty quick. When I was a repo man, there was a couple times I had to get cars out of there. So I know very well where La Honda is.
So I just got obsessed with the name, and I said, and I tried to do some clothing stuff with it when he had a few other opportunities that just never worked out. But I kept that name in my mind, and whenever Travis was like, well, what are we going to call this record label? I said, man, I'd really like to call it La Honda. And it's just, so I had an idea of with his mystical stuff, my third eye, the buffalo, the drippy hippie letters or whatever. And I was like, Weird Beard, man, I got to call him. And we just kind of brainstormed that up, and it was the first thing he sent, and it was so done and complete. And I was like
perfect. It's like a perfect logo for a record company that you own. Yeah. It's like, sometimes there are those things, where everybody involved is in sync on a completely different level, and you create something special. And I feel like that's kind of what is going on with everything you got going on right now. Is you are in sync with the right people, and everybody's vibrating at the same frequency to make great stuff, because everything's very well done.
Thank you. Well, I think it took me a long time in my design life and art career to kind of just let go of any notions of self and be like, I can be part of bigger, better things if I do what I do well and link up with the right people, and they do what they do. And if everybody can stay on that team vibe, and sometimes it's not easy. But luckily I'm with the right people, I mean, we all appreciate what we do, and all know our limitations and are able to say, this isn't what I do best. So let's find who can, and it's served me well. I'm very grateful.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I'm so proud of you. And it's so cool to watch things progress, as a friend. And, we're something a little more than friends at this point.
Yeah.
We're definitely like family. So,
Yeah.
it's important in this life that you figure out, who to root for, and you always do so, and so I'm always happy to see you having success, and Jim, and again, that the greater bubble of our friend community, which is just it's crazy how many of us are still in contact, and work together. It is crazy. To kind of circle back a little bit.
When you started messaging me about, hey, I think I'm going to try to figure this podcast thing out. I mean, I knew you would knock it out of the park. I mean, it's whatever you do, you're great at, So there was no question for me. I'm like, well, he's asking me some advice, but he's going to figure this all out, on his own and find his groove with it. That's like you said, that's what a lot of people, I mean, look at like Rob Jones. I mean, we all knew that crazy bastard was going to go on.
Son of a bitch won a Grammy.
Yeah. And just so many people with everything. I mean, like Peabody, and the restaurants and the revival cycles and like whatever, and I think it just comes down to like, we're a real fucking bunch of weirdos that like are just hard workers, The common thing, and it's the thing that keeps anybody in our circle, is that we're all relentless in whatever our pursuit is of whatever it is that we're doing. You kind of mentioned I don't have any choice but to do what I do. I couldn't exist in any form of happiness as a human being if I wasn't doing what I do. And, I appreciate your vote of confidence on the podcast thing. I honestly wasn't sure. I knew I could figure out how to do it. I just wasn't sure if I was going to be any good at it. And I don't know if I am or not. I mean, I think I do okay. Enough people listen. I guess I'm doing okay at it. But podcasting, and people don't realize it. It's being on air. It's being like on stage, and it's entertaining, and you've got to know. And to do that, I think the people that are best are the people who are consumers of media. Ricky's great at it. He's
the best guy.
You have learned your lessons and followed, and you are becoming your own thing in this world. So I think that people who consume stuff understand the good from the bad, and you take best parts and you know what to leave, and I think you're killing it. So
thank you. I appreciate that. It's kind of like, I always think back to like that Ira Glass thing where it's like, it comes down to like having good taste. People who have good taste, if you stay at the thing that you're doing and you just work at it, eventually your ability will match up with your taste.
Yeah.
And it's like, we are all good at what we do because we have good taste. We have a good eye or a good ear for the way things should look, or the way things should be when they're right. And, it's like anything else. You just you have to stay at it. Like, I think people get finicky about stuff, or people don't have the success that they want immediately enough, and they move on to other things, and,
they give up too easy.
Yeah. I don't have no give up in me.
No.
If anybody knows anything about me, that's what they know. All right, I'm going to let you go back to your amazing family and wife. It was good that Stacy popped on and said hi. You say hi again for me
I will do
sure.
it.
And please, if you guys come out here in June, obviously you're going to let me know, but we're going to sort it out. We got to have hangs for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think we're going to do that. We'll tour of visiting friends as our first venture out of, quarantine. So,
well, it's crazy because, you mentioned Shooter, and, I think I've mentioned to you before that he was like kind of he was on the periphery of my skate crew. Like all the Dogtown guys that I skated with, and my friend Carter played in Stargun with him. And then my guest for this week, Jim, is like best friends with Carter. And so we were all, you know, like when we would have skate barbecues, like, you know, Shooter would pick up the guitar. And so I know him a little bit. And so, you know, maybe when you're in town, maybe we just like kind of try to get everybody together in one spot. That would be cool.
That would definitely be cool. Yeah. Shooter's another person, like really the work ethic and the talent and having good taste. It's all come together for him now with producing music. I mean, I think he's found his stride, and I think he'd be a great guest on here. So I might have to put in a word there.
I'd love to have him on. I'd love to have him on for sure. You know, again, he's like 1 degree of separation from like 5 people I know. So I'm sure, I'm sure I can make it happen.
One of us can get it done. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Connie, thank you so much for being on. Finally checked you off the list. Like you were like on the first, like the list of the first 5 people. Who am I going to have on my podcast? And it's like, well, I'm going to have Connie on. And then of course we had the weirdest year in history. Yeah. And my wife was like, you think she's ever going to come on? And I'm like, when Connie's ready to come on, she'll let me know. We're done asking her. She's not coming on because she doesn't want to. She's
we had a weird year. Weird year.
And when everything comes back, she'll let me know. And as soon as you were ready, you were like, hey, let's do it. And here we are. I appreciate it, Connie. Like anytime I can get some time talking to you, I'm always happy about it. So
absolutely. All right. Well, I'll be hitting you up for some work real soon. So we'll be talking.
Okay, cool. All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.